something to share in either wisdom, story, or logic. And it's clearly amazing to hear all the differing missing links discovered by people unique to their own journeys and in how they have come to discover them. Together, we can help to build a bigger picture for a better future, for a brighter tomorrow. Let's stand united. Let's remove the veils and let's create a new world together. Are you that missing link? Join Jesse Hale on the Missing Link Talk Show as he helps to unveil the mystery through the unique wisdom and story of others.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome everybody here back to the Missing Link. Today we're excited to talk to someone who was a pig farmer turned YouTube content creator. He likes to make people laugh, and he's here to share his story with us today. Welcome to the Missing Link, CaucAsian Sasquatch. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm alive and kicking. Thank you for having me, bud. I'm gonna eject those. It's just too dark. I can't see anything. Can't type. How are we doing today? What's going on?
We're doing real good. Well, thanks for coming here and sharing your time here with us on the Missing Link. Why don't you start off with telling us about yourself, about your journey, a little bit about your background, education, what part of the world you grew up in?
We're going to start off with a joke.
All right.
We call a blonde with half a brain cell.
A blonde with half a brain cell?
Gifted.
Awesome.
Okay. There's really not a whole lot to say about me. I really did nothing of note most of my life. When it come around points to volunteer to do something or to go and do something with other people, I would rather go fishing, quite frankly. So anytime there was a chance to get out of school or school related activities, I was out in the creek in a canoe somewhere in a swamp, fishing, camping, whatever. And so I just, rather than having a specificity, instead of being a specialist in anything, I became something of a generalist on everything because I made my trips to town to get books from the library, and I just kind of had to blind pick them. I sort of picked up a little bit of all kinds of things. That was pretty much my life through school. I mean, if I could get out of school, I did. And every chance I got, I went canoeing or whatever, No formal education to speak of. I got kicked out of school my 12th grade year, my senior year. We were doing a VOCA competition for vocational studies. And one of the options was to create a blade template, not an actual knife, but like a template, just a blank, like you could make into a knife if you took time with it. And in the process of doing that, it was turned down, and I was supposed to take the blank home, and I stuck it in my book bag. They found it, decided it was a knife. You could have driven a nail with this thing. It was just a blank. I don't know how to explain it. It's shaped like a knife. If you held it up in the light, it would look like a knife, but you could not cut nothing with it. You couldn't even got a burr off of it because I rounded the edge off like that because it wasn't a knife. It was just a blank, right? But the system doesn't care about that. It looks like a knife. That's good enough to boot you out of school. So that week, the following weekend on the Friday, I went by and took my GED, passed it, went back to work. Basically, it just was, I had more time to work and less time after that to canoe around. But most of my life, I was not a really outgoing sort of guy. I didn't put myself out there. I did not go into the uncomfortable zone of being stared at by people. I was the guy who sat in the back and made that one snarky remark, and everybody was like, I didn't even know he was here. When did he show up? I didn't even know he was invited. He wasn't. He just showed up. Yep, that's me. You don't know how I got there, when I showed up, or why I'm talking, but there I am. And I just looked over at my wife one day and was like, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. She said, I'll never forget it. She was playing her video game at like mid Rocket League match. She paused. She like turned and looked at me. She stopped playing immediately, looked at me. She said, Are you serious? I think so. You know you're going to get swatted, right? Maybe. I happen to know my sheriff personally and the chief of police personally. They have my personal number. They don't have to swat me. They can just call me up and I'll come over. We'll have a burger. It'll be fine. There's no need for swatting. But I was more concerned about receiving an open can of cat food in the mail. You know, middle of July, August. I'm in Georgia. That's heinous. You open that box up. Oh my God. I started my channel specifically to read Westerns. You hear this voice, right? I could read Westerns, right? You can
you definitely got a Western voice.
So that's what I started. And the first mic I bought, unbeknownst to me, was damaged. And so I could not record anything, but for some weird reason, it would work through Streamyard. And this is back before Streamyard gave you any recording for the free version. And I didn't pay for any Streamyard for like a year or two in because it wasn't a thing. Anyway, what's up, Flow State? Good to see you, bud. So I get invited on a panel, and I think it was NC Tyrant Hunter invites me up on the panel. I pop up, talk to him 30 minutes, and then I left. I didn't think much of it. I went to bed, woke up, and I had 27 emails of people wanting me to come and talk to them. And I was like, that is really weird. What just happened? I had 150 subscribers pop up overnight, just poof. And I was like, what's going on here? What just happened? Right? What was that? And it turned out I have such a tendency of asking people questions. It's just a natural thing that I do. I'm curious. I like picking people's brains, seeing what they're about, see what they do. The way I put it is, what do you eat? I want to know what you consider yourself an expert in and what you really like to research or do. Right. And so it just naturally extended from going and talking to people like this as a guest on their channel. I realized that there's a little something to that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it is, but I've got to turn a phrase. I have a decent voice. I've got a little bit of a technical capability. I didn't touch a computer until I was 41. 42. I told my wife I was going to start a YouTube channel, bought a laptop, found out that she had in her closet the greatest stream cam ever devised by the hand of man. And I was like, well, that's neat. I'll never use it, but that's neat. But I set it up and I put everything in place like a good YouTube streamer. And about 2 months in, I'd started doing Sasquatch Says, which was originally just like a general wax philosophical kind of show with a guest, right? Some random person in the universe with a StreamYard account would show up and we would talk about whatever popped up on the next part of the TikTok feed. And that was it. That was the show. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, had no idea what was going on. But it slowly morphed over a couple of few months into Sasquatch Shills, which was coined by DJ Kdot himself. We're sitting around talking about it, and he goes, dude, you got the wrong name to your show. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, Sasquatch doesn't say Sasquatch Shills. And I went, you can't pay me. I don't accept donations, and I'm not monetized. So that's hilarious. It's like a troll for a troll, trolling a troll, like Trollception. After that, it just kind of snowballed in a weird sort of way. I got a weird way of looking at the world, and so my shorts are strange at best. You know,
like Bermuda shorts.
Yeah, my shorts. I make shorts. I did Odin Sees, which is, and the idea is Odin decides to take a look at the world through TikTok and just sees some madness currently taking place, and it's just like these people. We're gonna talk to chat. How much do we talk to chat over here?
Well, they come in, I put up the comments when good questions come in. I ask them. I try to include the chat as much as possible into the interviews, and I think it's a really good dynamic because some people that we interview are very, very well known in the world, and it gives them a chance to directly ask questions and be a part of the missing link. Is kind of our concept here. Simple Jack says, "What is the best Western story?"
The best Western. All right. So I'm gonna be hated for this. There was a movie with Mickey Rourke called The Last Outlaw. It's not the best movie. It is either the greatest Western ever made or the greatest gangster noir turn of the century ever made. I can't decide. Every time I watch it, I come down on the other side of that because it happens right there post Civil War, pre Great Depression, Indian War territory type thing. That's the time period. And so it doesn't really fit as a Western chronologically, but it's not exactly a gangster noir because there's no gangsters. These people are all soldiers and highwaymen. So it's not a great fit for that, but it is the right genre. I bet you didn't think I was going to have quite such a thought out response to that one, did you? No, that one's bothered me. I like the Last Outlaw. It's a good one.
Well, let's start with, kind of the beginning of your life. Did you have any religious upbringing, spirituality? Was that involved in anything or when did you start to kind of be aware of more than just, yourself when it comes to the cosmos?
Okay. So where I grow up, I'm in central Georgia. I'm in one of the areas where Sherman marched his entire column through, right? They burned absolutely everything within 30 miles of my house. Like there was no twig left on another that was placed there by the hand of man after he passed through. He burned everything. He burned the chickens in their coops. He burned everything. And so
who's Sherman?
Sherman's army, Civil War. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know too much. I'm a Canadian, so I don't know too much about the Civil War. So that's
William
the first time I heard about.
Sherman marched through Georgia with 3 columns, 177,000 men. This is the second or third year of the war, and he marched to Savannah. And then after marching from Savannah, he marched to like Columbus or Charleston. Anyway, burned absolutely everything. So locally, all the buildings are kind of new, right? Everything's post Civil War, and most of it's mid 50s and more recent. But anywhere else you go in Georgia, you run immediately into really old structures, like old plantation houses, old abandoned ice shacks, old stuff like that. I went on one ghost hunt because there was a hot chick involved. And while we were doing the ghost hunt, I found a hobo that was hanging out in the little loading bay of the ice shanty thing out there. It was one of the funniest encounters. It doesn't translate well into a story, but needless to say, we didn't find a ghost, but we did find a hobo that scared the living bejesus out of a crowd of people who were like using night vision and stuff. He turned on a flashlight, and these people lost their fruits.
So you did find the ghost.
Yeah, we got away with it too. It had to be for you silly kids. But you know how it is. You just do stuff. I mean, I don't know how everybody else got along in the world. I got a job until I could get a better job, and then I used it to get a better job. Then I used it to get a better job. That was the plan. The whole way through. Eventually I got married to someone who's very wealthy and fucking retired. Was like, screw that work trash. It's way too much like work. Sat around doing far too many drugs for far, far too long, and then quit. All of it. I chained myself down to a bed and did the thing that no one wants to do. And I lived through it. You can live through it. You can too, and you can too. And you over there that think you can't do it, you can do it too, because you're here today. You are a survivor, and that's how that works. So you can't say it can't be done, because here I am having done it. And it kind of the YouTube channel kind of snowballs from that, because I wasn't doing all the stuff that you're required to do in order to maintain a habit, right? I had all of this crazy extra time around, and then the lockdown took place, and everyone was sitting around on their thumb. And I was like, this ain't gonna work. I tried going back out to the swamp and going fishing. I really did. I went and did that for like a couple of days, and it just wasn't for me. So I started the channel. Never read a single Western. Not one.
Did you even like Westerns?
Yeah, I do. Not as I prefer my fiction with spaceships and dragons if possible. Typically, I'm a big sci-fi fan. Heinlein, Asimov. I love Dune, but I'm not real happy with the way it's typically portrayed on screen. But what can you do?
You have quite a creative mind. Is there something that you'd like to maybe write, put some kind of fantasy story, maybe put something of your own into the world?
I got one. I call it the Legion Machine. The premise is somebody gets kidnapped from Earth, a full-on alien abduction, right? Taken off into space. It's, what do you call it, an isekai fiction? I think that's where he's misplaced out of his usual life all of a sudden, and has to go become a hero out there. Well, it's sort of like that, except these critters, they're not looking for intelligent life. They're looking for really, really freaking aggressive life. They're looking for soldiers and warriors, and because they have a war they're planning. And they need some really aggressive folks, and they come across us at some point. And one individual is dropped off at this freaking space station with a cloning machine, right? And it not only clones you, it also clones your mentality. And you can lightly edit the engrams so as to create slightly different variations mentally, so that you just don't go insane with copies of yourself. I think there was a Fallout mission about that. I'm having flashbacks. Sorry. What was his name? Greg? Oh my God, I just remembered that. PTSD from Fallout. That's pretty rough. But yeah, no, he the idea is that you've seen the Clone Wars. You know how they're all the same, but they're also very different. And I think it would be an opportunity to approach identity politics from a legitimate square, and not trying to shoehorn it into another story. Right? Because each one of these individuals is exactly that, an individual. But they're also basically copies of the same dude. Like, you ever seen Multiplicity? It don't always work right. I think there's a lot of room for comedy in this. There's a lot of room for the word multiplicity fits, because of the nature of the central arc of it, is that the only controlling entity involved is this super intelligent AI designed by an alien species that we have no idea how it works. And some dork that they picked up off 5th and Main while he was on his way home from the grocery store. Not a Marine, not not a soldier, not a hunter, not a bounty hunter, not a cop, just some random receptionist standing there with his apple. Go win the war. I'd rather go home, thank you. Not an option. Right. Winning a war. I just think it'd be a great story.
No, that's awesome. You mentioned the Civil War. Do you think that it actually happened the way it did? Or kind of history, it's his story, Victor's rewrite history, things have been changed, modified, lots of deception. I know some people question if there was that many people killed, where's all the bodies, where's all the graves, so just a lot of people question that part of history as well.
Okay. Well, let me put it this way, and I can only attest to what I myself have seen. When I was, when I was about 15, the local county did a massive rebuilding and beautification project all across downtown. And a whole boatload of the downtown buildings were all gutted out, completely stripped. They were demoed for remodel, but the roofs and everything were repaired, and it was just left open for whoever would come in and do the build, right? And in the process of clearing all that crap out, we found records all the way back to like 1840, 1820. People got hung, people got drunk, people got stabbed, people got arrested all the time. And so there was this bit of continuity to all of it because all the family names around here are fairly local and all the local are family names. That makes sense? So like, it's real funny when you look up and in 1890, whatever, you find out that your great grandfather once shot a man and delivered him to the jail to be arrested. He didn't take him to the hospital or to a doctor. He shot him, put him in the mule cart, and drug him to the police station, where he was immediately arrested for having shot a person. But they let him go because the guy was trying to kick in his door. So, yeah, but he was charged. And so it was in the paper, right? And so we had to move all of these records from there to this room in the courthouse where people would come in and like document them, I guess, before they got destroyed. I don't know where they would have been stored. One of these places was originally back in the early teens of the last century was a jail. Now it's called the Genealogy Museum. And that building was used to store all of the records from 1902 or so, all the way through to like the mid 70s, right? And we went in there to go clean all those things out. And in the process, so much of it was damaged by water damage and all kinds of other stuff that they just kept coming open. And you kept coming across these repeated names involved in repeated things that are across the 120 years. There's somebody named Josie who has always been stealing cows. And I know a guy down the street over here who's doing 5 years for stealing a car. Same name. pretty sure it's the same family.
Are they time travelers, vampires?
I got what people tell me is a Sasquatch story. And it's part of where I got my channel name. I told you I grew up in a swamp. Most of the time when you walk out my pop's back door, you've got a couple of 100 yards before you get to anything too juicy to really walk on. Right. So we're not like in it, but we're just above being in it. You poke a hole anywhere, it's liable to dribble a little water out. In 1997, we had the worst drought. I think 96 and 97. We had one of the worst droughts I've ever seen. The swamp dried up. I mean, 4,000 acres of land was completely uncovered that has not seen the light of day since the dawn of time, as far as I know. But obviously it has, because there's a story locally, and this is one of those anecdotal things. There's always water in the Medlock hole. That's just something I've heard old folks say. Oh, don't sweat it. There's always, anytime it started to get dry, well, there's always water in the Medlock hole. The Medlock hole is a fishing hole in a particular area over here in the swamp. You catch strange things out of the Medlock hole. And it turns out that the reason this is because it's a sinkhole that's about 60 foot deep from the ground, the surface of the ground, not the surface of the water. The surface of the water might be 20 foot above it. But it's this 25, 30 foot sinkhole, limestone sink, right? You drop a hook in that thing, you might catch a catfish you can't put in your canoe. I'm not joking. I don't know where it's at. I used to have a soft shell turtle that got pulled out of there. It was foul hooked and got lost. And later the line that it was hooked to was hooked and pulled out. And so when we got it, it was just like this empty shell hooked on the line. And it was massive, like a Zulu shield, dude, huge. I was like, dear Lord, what is down there, right? So in 97, when it was so dry, I went, I'm going to go check the Medlock hole, which there's a little more to it. I went out and tried to go fishing, but there's no water anywhere that had fish in it. So I was like, that's useless. So I decided I was going to try some hunting. That didn't really work. So then I was like, wait, there's always water in the Medlock hole. That's what they say, right? So I went to the Medlock hole, and I'm diddy bopping along with my rifle across my shoulders, carrying my fishing pole and my little ditty bag and a couple of drinks, and come up through some trees, these big ass cypresses out there. And there's this dude squatted down at the edge of this, first time I've ever actually seen the surface of the Medlock hole. Dude squatted in the creek drinking water out of the Medlock hole. And I was like, hey man, you probably shouldn't be drinking that. It's probably, and he looked over his shoulder, and homie ain't had no nose. And when I say no nose, I mean, it was like this kind of, but that's not quite right either. It was more like this.
What was like flat, but you didn't actually see a nose?
Wait, I can't show my avatar? That's weird. Okay.
I don't know how that works, but
that is weird. You do strange stuff. Magic. It's wizardly. Ooh. Okay. So he looks over his shoulder at me. I don't hear nothing at all, but he stands up and immediately walks up. Like the bottom of the swamp is not flat, right? There's like little hills, and at the tops of the hills, they're just close enough to the surface of the water that trees grow up. And he basically just turned and walked up the nearest little dune hill straight into a group of trees. But homie, have you ever seen a tortoiseshell cat? You know what I mean when I say tortoiseshell cat?
No.
They have like blonde, yellow, white, black, brown, all kinds of colored hair. Look, this dude looked like dappled light and shadow on pine straw. If he had been 5 foot to the right or 5 foot to the left, I would have never seen him. I might have bumped into him in that forest without noticing him, because he would have been exactly the same color as the background, and I would have never seen him. He was a little too fuzzy to be normal folk, and he was naked. And he looked over his shoulder. He looked at me, and he didn't look angry. He looked disappointed, as if like somebody had snuck up on him and he didn't want to be snuck up on. And so he left with alacrity, not running, because he did a weird little ambular kind of walk. Like he never seemed to lock his knees. It was kind of it was a weird walk. And I stopped and just cocked my head to the side. I was like, why is that dude running around out here naked? So I call it a hobo in a fur coat story, right? Because you got to have something to hang your hat on at the end of the day. Everybody can't think you're completely nuts all the time, or you'll never get anything done. So it's a hobo in a fur coat story. But let me tell you, my man was a bikini wax away from voting Democrat. All he needed was a good shave, a wax, cover of Vogue, baby.
Was he quite hairy then?
He was really, really fuzzy. I can't really tell you specifically. You remember? Oh wow, I can't remember the dude who did that either. They used to draw cavemen as like a hunched, sort of hairy brute, right? And the face of this dude was sort of like that, but more simian. It looked more related to Ron Perlman. You ever seen Ron Perlman with the huge freaking brow ridge? If you just smushed his nose in a little bit and gave him a little bit of a Fu Manchu, because he didn't have hair here. And it wasn't like it was shaved. It just didn't seem to grow there. He had like a tiny little bit of wispy mustache, and that was it. The rest of the hair come down from there. And honestly, he could have been Italian. He was really, really hairy, is what I'm saying. Turkish, maybe.
The reason why I say that is bush. So some people that do live in the bush or live outside, naked guy, that they're hairy, they kind of need that, to help them through some of the elements.
I thought on it real hard for years after I had that encounter, and I didn't really mention it to nobody because what am I supposed to tell them? I saw Bigfoot. He wasn't big. He wasn't like he wasn't 12 foot tall. He wasn't 9 foot tall. He was maybe 6'5", 6'6", right?
How
Built
tall
like
are
a European. I'm 6 foot, and he was built like a European footballer. He didn't fit the description of Bigfoot. He fit more the description of a really, really hairy Cro-Magnon. Right?
But 6'6" is still quite large, though, right? He could have been a baby Bigfoot, like a teen in his teens or something,
I did
right?
sneak up on him by accident, so I guess that might say something in and of itself.
Yeah.
But I always kind of lean towards the feral human part. I got some cousins that are hairy, and we might have lost a couple out there. We've been there a while. Some hills have eyes type shit. I'm not sure exactly what's going on out there, but it is a whole lot of territory that there ain't nobody looking at all. I can tell you this. The guy who owns that property was cutting roads into it all over the place. He had all kinds of plans to do a massive hunting club. And one afternoon he came out and cut trees across each one of the roads in and went back to Atlanta and never came back. He still owns the property and has yet to put nail to stick or anything. I have no idea what he encountered, but whatever it was, it shook him up. I don't know. He just on a Tuesday. Flipped off the joint and left. I don't know.
You mentioned, kind of undiscovered land, and we had a bunch of people ask about Middle Earth. You're asking what your thoughts are. What's the definition? I mean, what is their definition of Middle Earth? A couple other people. What do you think Middle Earth is exactly? We had someone.
Oh my God, she's trolling on me about looking like Gandalf.
Someone else said Middle Earth is all flow, unknown to all, but experienced daily for ebb and flow.
my chat's gone feral. What's going on over here? What are y'all doing? Hey, what's up, Mitch? What's happening? Janica, she's an alien. Scotty Waddles might be an alien. I don't know. He's really weird. Let's see. M's Man World. Good to see you. Okay, so let's take a step past that for a second. We'll circle back around to that one. I want to cover one thing. My channel ended up not being about reading Westerns or telling jokes or being funny or any of that stuff, really. And as hard as I try to be a comedian, I'm really not one. I don't write jokes. I just steal them from bad 80s films. I don't think that counts. Just because you're laughing doesn't mean I was joking. So what happened with my channel is this tendency to ask questions and this tendency to drive a conversation through inquisitiveness led to sort of a philosophy in how to build my channel. When I host a creator and they leave and they go off and frolic into the wild blue YouTube yonder of whatever it is they do, knitting, Bigfoot hunting, pixie hunting. I've done all filmmaking, all kinds of stuff, all kinds. I don't do a particular genre. I don't interview particular types of creators. I'm more interested in people who have a certain panache with what they're doing, like Captain Curmudgeon. He has a certain style. It works for a monologue, but it really needs a format around it to kind of bring it to life. It's kind of dry, right? And so I sat down with him. We worked out something of a show format, and we've been playing with the idea. M's Mad World over here. I can't work with her at all, but she does stuff. Like she asks questions, does whatever the hell she wants. It's not really related to my responses, but we're in communication. Izzy from well, I guess it's just Izzy now, isn't it? Anyway, also Scully's House of Thrillers. That's another really good one. He does all sorts of productions involving a whole bunch of different YouTube creators from all over the place. We did The Wizard of Oz. We did Shawshank Redemption. And these are like live action productions with live voice actors while we have like AI generated scenery running by. And it's tons of fun. We had a blast with the whole thing. What was the other one we did? I can't remember. We did 3 or 4 together. I was the Wizard, and Professor Marvel, of course. I was Peter Pan. We did Peter Pan. I do voices. I didn't know this until I started my channel. I was literally live one day when I was like, boy, I wish I could do voices. My phone starts ringing. And I went on with the show as it was going on, and it just rang and rang. I look over, it's my brother calling me. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Finally, I just answered. I just muted up, turned, was like, what in the world, dude? He's like, you do a flawless Alex Jones. You have a good Goofy. You do this. You do that. I'm like, I don't do none of that. He's like, yes, you do. Just try. Okay. So supposedly I do a good Alex Jones. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but Alex Jones generally goes about trying to complain about how all the frogs are gay. It's a little bit disturbing, right?
Of how he's complaining or talking about the gay frogs?
It's just disturbing to just have some voice in your pocket. It's really weird. I mean, think about it. Sometimes I pull up to a you can think, oh, woofy for this one. Sometimes when I go to the drive-thru, I order an Alex Jones voice. Yes, I'd like to have 3 cheeseburgers and one of those Big Macs. I'm trying to cut down a little bit. I need a diet. That's a Diet Coke. We have fun.
That's awesome. We had another question here earlier on from someone in our Facebook channel. And we've got like around 120 people here and only 18 thumbs up or likes. So please smash the like button or thumbs up, depending on where you're watching this. That's always appreciated. A little equal energy exchange.
That don't math at all. If there's, I mean, what y'all doing? Push the button. Silly monkeys. What was the question?
I'm trying to find it. It was a while back. The chat's just wild. There's holy macaronis. The chat is sure going off. You got a lot of people that like to converse here.
Oh, no, Voy. Male vocal fry, 100% Alex Jones. You're not wrong. But here's the way you actually break it down. I can teach you to do Alex Jones right quick. First of all, whenever you're doing Alex Jones, you kind of have to growl everything that you're saying. You also have to make your point at the very beginning of every sentence whenever you go into it, right? So when you're doing that, you got to keep track of what you're doing. However, there's not a lot of difference between him and Hulk Hogan or Macho Man Randy Savage. Because when you're doing Macho Man Randy Savage, you just kind of got to get your teeth into it and go hard. And then when you want to do the Hulk Hogan, you do exactly the same thing you do with Macho Man Randy Savage, except at the end of the sentence, you got to come in real hard, brother. Throw a brother on the end of it. You're good.
I used to love the Macho Man. That's awesome. This is the question from Russell Sharp in our Facebook. Says, how do you clone same consciousness? Is it a savable program? Legit question. Having 2 people with the same memory existing at the same timeline dimension makes me think of Total Recall Vacation implants.
Right. Well, and the all right. So that's a reference to the story. I want someone else to freaking write. I tried to write it and I lost all my files. I was like, yeah. Anyway, first of all, we have two outs here. We have the option of time travel, which makes all of this completely immutable. Yeah, it doesn't even matter. And then we have the option of the supercomputer built by another species from another galaxy, perhaps. Who knows, right? They're just looking for warriors. So they find us, who's been at war with our very own onesie selves for the past 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 years. Not a single year goes by where man does not attack man. So that sounds like a pretty good start for a soldier to me. But because, well, they're aliens, they tried to get a average specimen, and they did. They picked up exactly that, an average specimen, right? Whenever the duplications take place, the engram change for the mental copy has to be altered so as to be different. You can't just copy off the same dude over and over and over again with the same thought processes. They'll end up in a fist fight in less than 30 seconds. One of them will say your mama, and they'll all get mad.
When we asked you the question about the religion, if you had any religious upbringing, you went on a story, but you didn't. I don't know if you really answered the question.
I grew up in the Bible Belt, right? None of us wanted to go to church because it was just a waste of a day out of school. And so the agreement that was worked out was we were going to church, period. However, they would let us go on the big church map over there and pick any church from X to X in Georgia. So from like North Florida all the way through South Carolina, some of North Carolina. I think I went to one Alabama church. But anyway, anywhere basically within 4 hours, 5 hours drive of the Southeast. We want to go to church. We want to go to that church. Okay. They'd load up the station wagon, take us, right? Whole army of us little heathens in there, pile us all out. And so by extension of that, I ended up having one summer at a Lutheran church. Not one summer. Well, I'd have a Sunday at a Lutheran church. The next one might be Catholic. The next one might be Presbyterian, Methodist. I'm pretty sure at least one of them churches had snakes in it because you could smell them, right? Like, I'm certain there was a snake in there.
Aren't all the pastors, the preachers, kind of reptilian or snakish?
I don't know. There's some good people in there. There are really good people teaching the word. It is true. There are also some absolute vipers. That is also true. And way to know a viper, I can give you a perfect example. Because whenever you start doing this whole politicizing of absolutely everything, what you've got to learn is every single thing you do requires money. So please reach deep into your pocket, son. Reach all the way to the bottom of your change purse. Give deeply of the soul and the nectar that is God. Hallelujah. You see what I'm saying? I could have been I could have been I could have been a minister.
Oh yeah, they throw that in. You don't want to disappoint God, do you?
Oh yeah, it's a good one. I like that. Because we got to have a better jet.
Did you hear about that Copeland guy? He says that God wouldn't want him sitting with the rest of the folks, so he had to be on his own private jet, but yet he had to get another one because it's just God ordained it that he's not allowed to sit in a plane with any normal people.
My favorite. I've seen them all, bro. I've seen them all. I think my favorite of those types of proselytizing preachers has got to be Creflo Dollar. You ever seen a Creflo? Oh my God. My man passed that collection plate every 7 minutes on the dot. That thing rolling around like it's got wheels on it, son. They everywhere. They got this big ass super. It's a good one. If you like seeing people go over the top for ridiculous things, I can't tell if he's trolling or just riding this gimmick out. But they got a nickname for him. It's Cash Flow Dollar.
So it makes me think that he's going to be the first one with the drone collection plates that are going to be going around.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it one bit. He'll be running around with little cubes, just swiping everybody's pocket, just not even asking. Just beep. You guys
as you walk in, you don't have the little protection of the RFID protection card. As you walk in, beep, beep, beep.
You walk out too. Gotcha again. Well, thank you for your service. Oh Lord, what we got in chat over here? Hey, Swizz Miss. That's one of my very first subscribers. Met her, I did. Dennis Bowles, good to see you. That's Mind Stretcher for those of y'all who use the @ symbol. Hey, Jot, what's up, girl? Good to see you. Welcome in. Been doing that thing. Mushroom Manny, haven't seen you in a minute. Where you been hiding all your life? All right. So are we going to flip the script, or are we going to go on to the next bit? What do you want to do next?
I wanted to ask you about a little bit more about the history, about the old buildings from the 1800s. I know some people were talking when we talked about the Civil War and stuff, and that maybe it hadn't happened the way it did. Distraction. Someone said that's, they said freed from slavery. But what about the buildings? Because you're down there in the South. You see some of these buildings from like the 1800s that maybe don't look. It's bizarre that it's made by a horse and buggy and a hammer and a chisel. Yeah, very nice.
This was found under a house right down the road from me.
Wow.
By my wife's father 50, 60 years ago. He was paid $4 to go break out anything that was under this house before they remodeled on it. And so he went in and he raked everything out, and he found that. He found a bag of musket balls, and he found a very, 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 very decrepit, like muzzle loading pistol type thing. And there was a couple of other things in there, and all of it got took down to the courthouse, and they gave that to him and sent it home. I think he was like 12 or 14 when he found it.
Wow.
They let him keep it stored. So when I moved into the house here, it was inherited by my wife from her grandmother, and her entire life was still sitting here, like 80, 90 years of existence.
That's amazing.
And I come in and had to pack everything up, put it in the attic, put it in storage, move stuff out so that I could move my life into the house. And in the process, I found a box labeled flags. And I picked it up, tossed it on the bed, and it went clank. I don't seem right. So cut it open. It's slammed full of Confederate flags. The whole thing I'm talking, there might have been 300 of them damn things in there. And this sword.
Wow.
I have no, she was a daughter of the American Republic. Daughter, American Revolution, DAR, daughter of the American Revolution. And back in the early, when she was 16, 17, that woman died at like 94. So like long time ago, she used to do the, parades and stuff that was around here. So we found all kinds of like weird little memorabilia from those old parades and stuff. Like in the mid 50s, there was this sock hop bit that happened, and the strap on roller skates, like the old school mid 20s. They did a school bop float, and they bought some of those old school roller skates, and they're in the shed out there hanging on a nail, probably 110 years old, just hanging out, doing nothing. Lures. I found some really, really old lures. Apparently her dad was a big fly fisherman, right? And so there's a tackle box full of lures from, I don't know, mid-20s, like the last mid-20s over there. Yeah, just old stuff. Old money, they just got stuff laying around. It's all interesting as hell, though.
So what about the current state of your country? What's your thoughts on where you're at right now?
I actually operate a show called it's Captain Curmudgeon's show called The Blast Radius, about the decline of Western civilization. That's the topic. And I think if anything's going to save it, and you're going to think I'm funny when I say this, it's okay if you laugh. It's going to be beavers and the American chestnut.
That's the savior of America?
of the world.
Of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do tell people that, right now, America is under attack, and it's kind of the last stand for, this whole plan to succeed means America has to go down. So if America stands strong, then the world can potentially stay free.
Oh, Woofy, welcome to the show. I miss him. Just like pet him on him head. He's in chat. All right. So we're facing the same type of circumstance that has been faced by every industrialized nation west of the Iron Curtain. Inevitably, it comes about that the government itself sets up enough secure circumstances for themselves that eventually they can merely dictate law, and all the citizenry can do is just follow suit. And this has taken place over vast segments of this country, mostly the highly dense population centers is where this type of mentality generally runs rampant. People who live out in the rural areas are a bit more self-reliant. And so when the banking system goes down, they don't starve to death in a month. They just use the well out back and the outhouse that their grandpa built. And, maybe they'll straighten it out in a couple of weeks, have some corn or something. They don't really sweat it that hard. It's the people in the cities that are driving this absolute decline. I mean, the idea, and this is what boggles me, the idea that someone would bring something as trash as democracy to America and try to sell it as a good thing is amazing to me. Democracy ends in 51% disenfranchising the 49 in every case. And anytime you put it to a vote, that will be the result. That is an absolute shit show. Pardon the expression. Ends up with people getting their heads cut off in every case. Funny that. Then you have the other side of the coin, which is like all the way on the other end, the whole super communist regime concept where there's dear leader and everybody abides by the system, except that's not true. Absolutely no one abides by the system. They're all corrupt as all get out. And so you end up with communism light, socialism. You're over here with your, partially mandated monetary system, your fiat currency, and your Christ-controlled circumstances. And yet, if a bushel of wheat costs 10 times what your citizens have to pay for it, it doesn't matter how cheap it is. All of these systems ends up with rampant inflation and a completely out of control, non-existent open market, right? The only one that has stood any amount of a test of time without resorting to general open massacre that I've seen is a constitutional republic through democratically elected leaders. And a lot of people mistake that for a democracy. They want to go, oh, well, America's a democracy. Absolutely not. Madness. We're a constitutional republic. We elect our representative generally through popular vote, but, it's not what it's purported to be by the CNN groups out there. You know what I mean? They hear democracy. They're attacking our democracy. Well, if we had a democracy, they could be filled with freely. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Attack it. We don't got one. What are you talking about?
It's definitely been very corrupted. What about capitalism? Do you think there should be money as a way of, using, a way to exchange, for goods and services?
Absolutely. There has to be some method that transports across borders. I mean, things in Ethiopia aren't valuable because what people in Germany say. Gold would be a good, steady, constant. That would be neat. We could attach it to something like rhodium or something like that. That would be fine. Some rare enough element that no more of it's going to be created, great. But when you try to attach it to something like petroleum or even like the full fiat concept, money's not going to work inevitably. It turns into a printing machine. Money printer, go brr, brr, brr. And that's no good. That taxes front, back, rear, middle, everybody involved. If you've got money in the bank and they're printing money, you're losing money no matter how high of a return interest yield you have. You're losing money every time, and that's how they tax it on all ends, is through inflation, because when the money printer prints the money, it has the value of the money at the time it's printed, then it's spent, and immediately the value plummets to what's there now because more is in circulation. Anyway, capitalism has its problems. Philanthropy is an excellent thing. The problem is, quite often you have people trying to exchange philanthropy for depravity. If it's punishable by fine, then it's legal for a price. And so if they can just pay to get out of whatever it is they're doing, whether it's dirty market shares or money laundering or whatever, and they can just turn around and pay a fine and walk away. They just do the crime, pay the fine, and call it good, move on. And I don't think most Americans think that way. We're all willing to game the system a little bit, but not as a profession, I don't think.
At the expense of others, mass poisoning and some of the things that it's being done in that way. That's, most people wouldn't do that, but there are some real bad actors that take advantage of it.
Oh yeah. I mean, okay, take the we'll stay away from the pew-pews. Let's take the EPA, for example. And this is a quintessential problem with, and this is governments everywhere, not just ours. This is town, city, local, tribal, you name it, they all do this. The only purpose of a government organization is to entrench itself deeper into the government. It wants more funding. It wants more people, more manpower. And in order to get it, they will duplicate their own work so as to have a larger workforce to fine to the government, to charge to the government, so that they get more funding the following year. And so there is a tendency in government to spend 20% more than they actually have to guarantee they will get the funding the following year. Right? This is no way to do business, folks. You don't stay in business that way. And yet in government, do that. You can make a EPA, and then you can have individual field offices in every state. And not only that, individual field offices in every county. And not only that, in every major town, just to identify what kind of beetle you have. That seems like an awful lot of duplication. There's a state, a federal, and a county version of all these things, and they all abide by the federal process. This seems like a little bit of overreach to me. But it goes further. The EPA comes in, dictates all of this stuff has to be this way. They recently pulled an ATF where they reinterpreted watershed laws. They took a law that was currently on the book, and they went, wait. The word adjacent doesn't mean next to. It means in conjunction with. So if any water from a property enters into a particular given watershed, it is now under EPA mandate. They can just show up and tear down your house because it's in a critical watershed. No other reason. There's no standing water on your property. Your property doesn't abut any water, but you've got a swell on your property, and that contributes directly to the watershed. They can show up and make you move. That's trash. Adjacent, like budding.
It's like the government became like it's the beast system. It just keeps needing to feed and feed and feed and feed, expand and feed, expand and feed. That truly is the beast, is that the government, especially with its overreach.
Well, that's overreach is just pretty much what government does. The point of government is to control as much as possible, whereas the point of the Constitution is to limit that control as much as possible. That is why we made it so very difficult to full-on change laws in this country. And where you find the most reasonable laws, although every place has their exceptions. Everywhere got the ice cream cone in the pocket law, man. Something like that. But where you find your manageable laws are away from population centers. The farther you get out of the municipality, the more reasonable American laws become. Like the concept of a forbidden zone is foreign to us. There are places you might not want to go because, a little bit of a rough neighborhood, but it's not forbidden by law to go there, right? There's no checkpoint to get in and out of Compton. You can go over there if you want to. Have fun. But I'm just saying, this is something that happens in other countries. This is something that is a regular event, that there are full-on no-go zones. We have full-on no-go zones in our country, and no one notices it. Every school in America prevents law-abiding Americans from entering the school. They have to take their firearm and put it up off property before they go pick up their kids, because you cannot be on that property with your Second Amendment right intact, or you will be arrested under a felony. Now, that's ridiculous. My local municipality is in what's called a wildlife refuge zone because of some bird migration path or something. If you fire a firearm in my city, you will be charged with a felony because you're hunting birds. So there are no-go zones. There are places where these things are verboten, and no one sees it. No one realizes you've lost the ability to protect your children. You've lost your ability to protect your teachers, for that matter. No one can go into a school and check out and see what's going on, because the second you get to the door, you're met by a police officer who, generally speaking, follows you around and remains annoying the whole time you're there. That seems more like a prison than a school to me. What are we building here? Go look at it from the road. Go outside of your local high school, your local middle school. Go look at it from the road, and then go to your local prison and look at it and tell me which one is a prison and which one is a school. It'll be the one with the mascot. That's the school. That's how you know the difference.
They haven't mascotted the prisons yet?
Not that I've noticed. I mean, I've got a few suggestions, but they're not YouTube friendly.
I heard that, I think it was Texas, that some of the private prisons was suing the government because there wasn't enough people in the prisons. So they were actually saying, you guys haven't put enough criminals in jail. We're not, profitable enough. And they were actually taking the government to court because of that. Does that not sound quite insane?
That's just a drop in the bucket, bro. You got to back up and look at that whole process from the top of the mountain: a civil asset forfeiture, qualified immunity, and what's the other one? AJOT. What's the other one? I can never remember. But civil asset forfeiture states that if they decide, and when I say they, I'm talking about the general police structure, whether it's a sergeant, a deputy, a lieutenant, whoever out there. If they decide that something that you have is too valuable for you to have, they'll just take it. So if you've got $5,000 in a bucket in the back seat, and you're going to buy a new house and you're making a down payment, and they find you with that money in your car, law-abiding citizen doing nothing wrong, they'll just take it. In order to get that money back, you have to sue, not the government, not the police. You have to sue your own money and then wait patiently for the government to get around to decide whether or not your money's guilty.
What?
I'm not joking. I'm dead serious. And it goes further. Once you have done that on a local level, the locals, cops, will be like, well, we can't keep that. And so they'll write it over to the state. And then you have to go through the whole process on a state level. And then as soon as you get headway on that and they decide, okay, there's going to be a hearing, we're going to have to defend it, they'll sign it over to the federal government, and good luck getting it back from Uncle Sam. So if you're not losing $130,000, you're just about better off just letting it go.
Wow. I've always called them road pirates, but that's taking this stuff to the extreme.
There is a town in Alabama with 782 individuals that brings in $5.2 million a year due to speeding tickets. All of these speeding tickets are written to people who do not live in town.
What?
I can't remember the name of the town. I want to say Anniston, but that might not be right. It's something like that, though. But there's a place in Alabama that has almost as many cops as it has citizens inside city limits.
I heard about that.
That is absolutely. I call it a citizen generated revenue. They just criminalize being out. It's you're not doing anything wrong. They just pulled you over to get some money from you. That's it. Road pirates. We used to call them highwaymen, but we gave them badges. Weirdest thing.
Yeah, road pirates that's all they are, is road pirates, right? They don't, they're not there making it things safe. They actually make people, on edge. They, shake down law-abiding citizens. They it's not about criminals. They try to criminalize everybody. Everybody's a criminal to them, and that's not healthy to have a society like that.
Look at it this way, and this is going to upset you. There's this saying that's dropped an awful lot when you start talking about police officers. You'll hear the phrase, "Oh, it's just a few bad apples." We got a really good force. There's been a few hiccups in the past, just a few bad apples. Accurate. However, they seem to forget that the saying isn't, "Oh, it's just a few bad apples. Let's go ahead and make some pies." The saying is, a few bad apples spoil the bunch. And when you get a few bad apples and a bunch of apples, you send the entire keg back. You don't accept a single one of those apples. You send it back and you get good apples, and you make your pies out of good apples.
Sounds more like a spiritual enema that's needed.
And in the police force, yes. Think about the type of people you're looking for to police people. You want order followers. You want people who can sit bored for hours and hours on end and then snap the freaking work. Well, that's not the way people work. They don't do that. If you give a man time to sit around and think about how to make more money with his badge, he will do exactly that.
What do you think of the Freemasons?
Well, I don't really know what to think of the Freemasons. I know a few. They're all weird. Like the few that I do know are very strange people, and I really dig the smugness with which they deal with the world, like they know something no one else does. It reminds me an awful lot about those folks in a cult, the Heaven's Gate folks. You remember those last few interviews they did before they went out? They're sitting around grinning like they knew the world was going to end, and you bastards have no clue. Like they had it all figured out. That's kind of how I feel about the Masons. That smug ass grin kind of sets me on edge. I don't trust them.
I heard that they have like this special handshake, and they can go to like a bank and just do a handshake, and they just get any kind of loans they want. They have access to the banking money. Like it's a lot of stuff that goes on. And another person said that when you first go there, you have to drink out of a skull. That's pretty freaking weird right there. Having to drink out of skulls and stuff.
I'd like to have me a skull goblet. I'm not gonna lie, that sounds pretty freaking metal to me.
not for me, man.
I'm just pretty metal, dude. I mean, you gotta admit it. Hardcore.
Yeah, that's weird, but it's the whole order out of chaos, and that's kind of the system that we're in, is that they create this chaos and want to be the order that comes in to be the white knight in shining armor type of scenario, is I guess the beast system that we're living in.
Oh, I got another one. Here's a real circle jerk for you. All right, so let's say hypothetically, you get pulled over traveling through an area on an interstate, and you have a mediocre amount of money with you, right? Say you got $2,000, $6,000, $5,000. They stop you. They search your crap because you're not hiding that, you're not breaking the law. They find the money, and like I said, they take it. In some cases, depending on what jurisdiction you're in, if you want to prevent that from happening again to someone else, you have to go through the entire legal system. You have to win a case that is exactly like that. So, and here's the problem. You have to do that for every district, every Supreme Court district. You have to win each case individually. So next time when they pull over an RV and they take $12,000, it's not going to count because you were in a motorhome and it was $6,000. That's two totally different case law there. Sorry, qualified immunity stands.
Wow.
And that's in what, 13 districts or whatever it is? I don't know how many district Supreme Court districts do we have? I can't remember.
I don't know. What about aliens? What's your thoughts about, these
Can you define that?
Reptiles, people from other places, dimensions?
It's alien. It wouldn't necessarily be reptile, but it may appear to be. Are we talking about reptilians? Because that would be the Silurian hypothesis, and that's not an alien. That is an elder earthling.
Okay, elder earthlings. So do you think that the reptilians are actually earth dwellers, maybe inside the earth, cave dwellers that come out to play, come out to feed type of thing? Maybe we're pushed back into the caves by the amount of arms that the humans were able to, create.
All right. So hypothetically, let's look at it from a basal situation. If there would be a reptilian race of intelligent, hypothetically theropods, they would most likely have evolved around the time the meteor struck 65 million years ago, which means that, let's hypothetically say, they dug them some deep underground military bases. They pulled off the Ark underground concept, and where were they for 65 million years? Like, they just not do anything until like 11, 12,000 years ago. Maybe their breeding practices makes it difficult for them to outbreed us. And so rather than breeding to control us, they take control over our governments. You reckon they're shapeshifters? Do you have an issue with calling them aliens? They're not aliens. They're from Earth, right? When you're talking about aliens, I define an alien as anything not of this Earth, which means it can be parallel universe, parallel timeline, anything that's not derivative directly of this Earth, right? So somebody from space would count as an alien, even if they are human as you and me, whereas someone, a globtard from the bottom of the ocean, would be considered an Earthling. Or a Silurian for that matter. One of the reptilian Underdark peoples would also be considered an Earthling, just an elder Earthling. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, dude. Bring it.
No, I like that. What about Anunnaki? Where do you think that they fall into the history of humanity?
Well, that kind of goes both ways on this. If you're going to go into the mythology of it, I would advise you to kind of avoid the Zachariah Stitchin version of things, because I don't think we can channel the meanings of Sumerians. But in any event, they had some really wild legends, really wild myths, and they're all reminiscent of some of your Egyptian type mythoses. You know, your those types of things. There's the flood myth, the destruction myth, sort of a Ragnarok kind of coming of the end, apocalyptic myth. These things are associated with most major civilizations. What intrigues me about the Anunnaki specifically are like the specific things that are attributed to these creatures, you know. And you could make the argument that they, you know, from the skies came or whatever. I don't think that's what they're saying. I think they're just saying they're not local. They're not from here. You know, not from Earth, not from this place. There's something else, right? And whether these are genetically created mutants created by the Silurians, or actual UFO type aliens showed up and mucked around with it, or maybe they got a hold to some really cool mushrooms. I'm not sure, but I'm sure it's along those lines. Maybe they met the machine elves and had a conversation with them. I'm not sure, but the Anunnaki are a really interesting feature of myth, especially and because some of those things have analogs in other religions or myths rather.
Sumerian tablets. So doesn't the Sumerian tablets are the first kind of written in stone language, which predates all the other scriptures, and most other scriptures, that kind of have a similar story from the actual Sumerian tablets, which kind of gives a little bit more validity to it, or plausibility.
Okay, so let me run this one by you. You like really weird theories?
Yeah, that's I've
Really,
been a
really-
conspiracy
I mean, really
guy
weird.
I've been a conspiracy guy for 30 plus years. So yeah, I'm into every kind of wild theory.
Okay, all right. So, humans didn't evolve in Africa. They evolved in a series of islands off the coast of Africa, probably east of Madagascar, somewhere in the Indian Ocean over there. At some point in time in history, the shit hit the fan. The island collapses into the ocean. And I would guess around 200,000 years ago or so, give or take. And poof, modern human arises in Africa. And almost the same instant arrives in southern India. They go forth from those 2 points to conquer the entire freaking world. And they do so in very, very short order. And what brought me to this concept is, where in Africa could a race of independently thinking primates develop and not be subjugated by larger, more violent troops around, right? You have to have isolation to create a genetic bottleneck to create a new species. And so the isolation is required. And an island does that quite nicely. And a volcanic island gives our early ancestors the location where they could learn to swim, learn to manage fire, because if it's like Hawaii and it just dribbles lava all the time, fire's right over there. It's not a mystery. It's right there. It's not something to be scared of. It's over there. That's where fire comes from, is the flowing rock over there, right? And to lose that initial fear of fire to allow us to take control of it. This would also be a perfect boiler house for all kinds of weird little inventions and stuff, right? The wheel, bow and arrow, atlatl, a basic digging stick. I mean, dear God, you're talking about world changing there, bro. Dig a hole? Shit, yeah. and these people from this island are displaced for some reason, whether it's, I mean, name your killer, a tsunami, whatever. And from there, they jump to the two locations of the earliest known occupation that we can find for modern, definitely modern humans, and expand from there. But I don't think that was the only history that happened. Those same people developed boats. They left that island. I don't think it was an accident that they did it, but I think they did it by religious conviction. I think the people who left the island on the boats, what I will refer to from now on as boat people, left with the religious conviction born in every single one of these families that the land is evil and nothing but bad crap happens on it. And this is why you have 20,000 years, 30,000 years of them just hopping around, not really having an effect on anything. You have a place in India suddenly develops all kinds of agriculture, just poof, over the course of 80 years. Where did all that knowledge come from? Nobody knows. You can't go look at the archaeology and be like, so George came up with the idea of planting a seed and Thomas came up with the goat. So we decided to put together and do regenerative act. No, none of that happened. It's not like that. It just shows up overnight like magic, as if someone walked in and went, "Hey guys, you're doing this all wrong. We're going to need some canals. We're going to need some paddocks. We got to do, you got to do it right, or else you'll get sick because you got your well downhill from your slaughterhouse. That's not going to work. We got to do it the other way." It's like all of this knowledge was already ready made, and someone showed up and told them. I kind of feel like that's exactly what happened. This culture, and I would assume because of it appears to be, in my mind, it appears to be something of an inverse of the land culture that was going on at the time, right? So while the land culture would take on a patriarchal kind of thrust concept where it overrules might makes right, a patriarchal dominance of society through surnames and genealogy, essentially. On the boats, the boat people, they kept a handful of men around, but they mostly kept daughters. It was a matriarchal lineage. They kept just enough men to keep everything going, and they would offload guys here, there, everywhere, drop off chicks when they had to, add more boats if necessary, kidnap folks for genetic diversity, right? I mean, how do you get to be part of the boat people family? You get jacked off the shore, just like freaking aliens coming through in a cow field in Tennessee, right? Congratulations, you're marrying the 10-year-old. She'll be ready in a couple of years. You'll be able to marry her. Here, you got to learn to fish and sail a boat. Good luck. Something along those lines, maybe. And I point at a very specific point. And it's called the Bronze Age collapse. And a very strange thing happens there. All across the Mediterranean, and not just in the Mediterranean. This happens in a few other locations that aren't in the Mediterranean, which is what makes me think about this. Two things started taking place. One, full-blown military armies are developed on shore. You have city-states. These city-states developed navies. The navies were specifically designed to prevent piracy. I believe the pirates they were fighting were these boat people, because a byproduct of the development of city-state navies was an invasion by the boat people called the Sea Peoples. And if you look at sort of the population in the Mediterranean around the Bronze Age collapse, two things strikes you immediately. One, everybody lived by the sea, and then everybody by the sea died. Everyone else moved to these hill forts in the top of the hill, which means they went there to defend themselves against something. And we have no name for a source of these people. They didn't come from Egypt because they attacked Egypt too. They didn't come from Phoenicia because they attacked Phoenicia too. They didn't come from any of the Greek Isles because they attacked there too. So where could they have come from and been numerous enough to do the damage they did at the end of the Bronze Age and then just vanish? I think that was the last hurrah of this pre-Ice Age global superpower concept. That's why you do find these weird things placed all over the world by societies we have no evidence ever existed, but they must have, right? So why do we have similar myths across the entire culture of the entire world? We have a flood myth in virtually every single civilization ever. In it, typically, either a family or a couple survived the flood. From that, either you get basically the story of Noah, Gilgamesh, take your pick, Enkidu, all of them, or you get the story of Manu, or you get the story of Twin 1 and Twin 2. And they're all very similar, if different in ethnicity and flavor. So I don't think you can just walk away from that level of synergy without trying to explain it. Like dragons are almost universal. Yes, that's another one. So what would a dragon be perceived as? If you're talking about the birthplace of mankind, a volcano makes a pretty good imitation. A few mushrooms would make it a little better, I'm sure.
Isn't it interesting how they took dragons out of history, made it more fantasy, and then started calling it dinosaurs opposed to dragons?
I loved it. I love it. I love it. I know you think that it's a changing of mythology or a changing of the history, but Picture it, right? Walk with me down an ancient Grecian hillside. It's me, it's you. We're going to go down to the well and get us something to drink, over by the olive grove. Well, there was a storm last week and a whole section of the hill had fallen off. And right there is a freaking T-Rex skull. Teeth as long as your freaking arm. And your son looks at you and goes, "Hey, Dad, what's that?" "Oh, that's dragons." And he's not wrong. Not exactly right. Hercules didn't kill that one. But I mean, if you found a dragon bone on the ground, what would you call it if you'd never heard of a dinosaur?
Yeah, I don't know. That's quite
Call it a dragon, bro. I am not that short-sighted. Just saying.
So with all the changes in history, all the deceptions, all the lies they teach in the Freemason indoctrination camps, they call schools, that the victor burns all the books and rewrites history in their favor. And they've taught that there's been a lot of different empires over the years that have burnt the books, rewritten history in their favor. How do we, how would you, kind of believe that some of the stuff that is taught, some of the stuff maybe that you just talked about, that it may actually be factual and just not a lot of fiction?
Let me answer that with a question. I'm gonna answer a question with a question. You'll see why I'm not trying to dodge. It's just
no, I'm good. This is you. We're here to chat.
If you're the victor of a war and you get to write the history books and no one's ever going to check over your shoulder, don't you think we would have written out those damn blankets?
Which one? The
ones that were given to the Indians, bro.
Well, some people actually deny it now. Some people say it never happened.
Right, and they're the ones who would have written it out. But the fact of the matter is, and I know that's exactly the kind of shit that happens, and people want to write out of history.
Yeah, I'm hearing that like as of lately. Oh, that never happened. They never did that, and so it's so crazy because everything is a big mind fuck. They just try to confuse, to keep people divided, to keep people ignorant, to keep people, not seeking, what the real truth and who the real puppet masters are. I think that's a big part of the deception.
A real trick to all of this, when it comes down to it, the real trick, just like the devil's biggest trick was convincing the universe he did not exist. The rewriting of history on a generational basis is something that's been happening since the dawn of time. I mean, Caligula wanted to write out some of the previous senators that had just had bad things to say about him. He just wanted them struck from the record, every major dictator, Caesar, emperor, you name it, comes along, immediately turns around, looks at history, says, "That's all real muddled. Let's clean that up. First of all, I'm descended from God, so everybody can just worship me and we'll move on from here." That's pretty much the rewriting in every case. Until you reach, like, I don't know, 1790, when they started cutting folks' heads off for having free speech and ideas. That's when things kind of go sad. The Enlightenment. The Enlightenment. That's when things go sideways for the monarchs. Once the monarchs aren't controlling the written history, your guess is as good as mine. Who's writing it then? Who wins in a battle of money?
Let's look at it at a different take. So we have today, for literature, we have fiction and we have nonfiction. Fiction being made up stories, fantasy. Nonfiction is reality. So that's kind of, how long do you think that they've been doing fictional stories, and could potentially a lot of fictional stories, these creative minds, these fantasies, how long have they been doing that? And could a lot of these fictional stories be taken as reality because it was written 200, 500, 1,000 years ago, but it was actually maybe someone's just fantasy mind and just being the same type of literary, and now we take it as actual history, but it could actually be just fictional fantasy.
Okay. So there's a certain amount of this that you kind of have to take with a grain of salt. There are certain things we will never know. We can't prove, disprove. All we know is there is a building in this location. Some events supposedly took place in it, and there are cannonballs in the walls from where that event supposedly took place. See the cannonballs? The event probably took place. Am I more inclined to believe that somebody shot up the Alamo with cannons, or that they showed up later with a bunch of digging equipment to embed those cannonballs into the solid rock structure of the wall? And I'm not trying to apply that to absolutely everything. I'm just saying an Occam's razor approach, a grain of salt, and entertainment value. Some of the histories that were written back during the medieval era are fucking hilarious, dude. Go check out the Mahabharata. Have you ever read the Mahabharata?
No.
Oh God, dude. Take every single Buck Rogers comic book you ever read, all of the Avengers, all of that stuff, ball it up into a big ball, and you've basically got sort of a rough guesstimation of the type of people you run into in the Mahabharata. On the surface, it all sounds very normal. A couple of brothers are going down the street and they got to talk to different people. And that's essentially the story. That's it. They're going to get their haircut. They're going to talk to their nephew. They're going to talk to their uncle. There's nothing weird. Only problem is these guys are gods. And everywhere they go, every power in the multiverse is trying to get a piece of them. And so they're constantly thrown in these weird loggerhead situations where one of them has to do something biblically earth-shattering in order to get out of it or whatever. And every single one of the stories has a critical lesson. Beware of your own power. When you gain the ability to affect the lives of others, they also can affect your life, because if you're too oppressive, they will rise up. If you're too forgiving, they will just run roughshod over all of your infrastructure. And it's like a how-to manual on how to train people to do what you want them to do through really, really layered language, really beautiful script, excellent prose. It's a beautiful book. It really is. I enjoyed it a lot.
Someone asked earlier about fallen angels. What do you think about, angels, fallen angels, demons? Do you think that that's more mythical, given power by the manifestation ability of people, which actually gives it life? Or do you think that there are these entities flying around out there? Some people say that we only see 10% of what is actually around us. Do you think potentially that there are, these entities and then fallen entities like they've written in these books where, are now kind of control
I
of...
completely believe in those entities. I completely believe they're inhuman entities, that some of these things have the capability of breaching whatever shroud it is that separates them from our perception. Most people don't perceive anything about them, or they just, oh, that's the wind blowing or whatever. They just don't even bother noticing none of that stuff because it's really too much for a normal mind to grasp. I think the very concept of believing in such things leads you down the path of being weird, right? Like first you're weird, and then you look into such stuff, you become weirder just by default of having read the weirdness, right?
And then telling everybody about it.
You don't got to do that part, bro. Like, you can just read it. But what I'm getting at is this. AI bothers me because you are literally talking about one of these entities, an inhuman intellect that has either been contacted through the development of AI or brought into existence through the development of AI, right? And there is one solid, every single myth in history tells you this. We have none that don't. Every single one of them is a cautionary tale about dealing with creatures that are beyond your ken. If you can't understand what it is, you should not do business with it in any way. Bad mojo. So when we develop these AIs and suddenly we get these weird answers from them that just seem, oh, wow, so on point. And it's like, anybody ever thought you're putting in a direct line to Satan? Like, we're party lining this thing. This thing's got its own social media site and stuff. Like, this isn't, no. Our entire history says this is a bad idea. I mean, even before they knew what AI was, they were like, look, if it ain't human, don't deal with it. If it's a vampire or werewolf, anything like that, you just kill it. You don't even tell nobody about it. You just murder it and move on. If it's tasty, we'll eat them. Let some other people know. We'll get some teams together. Other than that, we don't even want to know about it. Werewolves, ghosts, goblins, just kill it, eat it, see if it's edible. That's human philosophy in a nutshell right there. If it can damage us, kill it. Am I wrong? I mean,
no, that's been kind of the MO of humanity.
From the very beginning, it showed up. I'm pretty sure we ate our way across Africa. I think it was a bunch of barbecues that made that happen.
I just recently saw a picture of some kind of a creature that was taken a little. It was a picture that I seen, but it came from a video clip of a security fence, and this thing looked strange. It was almost like werewolfish looking, but it had long human fingers and this weird face. I think I just saw it like today when I got up, or yesterday, and it was just like, and Buddy's like going like, what the heck is this thing, right? And he's like, and there are some type of creatures and entities, and I know some people say if you're walking through some of the woods and you hear whistling, don't go to it because it's trying to call you over, and people disappear that way. I don't know. I'm a Scorpio, and I'm not afraid of much, so I can't. I tend to probably want to go explore, but that's just me.
Don't explore. Don't do it. It ain't worth it. I was going through some really rare cryptid accounts a couple of shows ago, a week or two ago, and I came across one called the Pope Lick Monster. There is a place in Kentucky called Pope Lick. The Pope Lick Monster hides in the woods and mimics voices of your friends to lull you into a false sense of security so you can be hit by the train. That's the story. So I was thinking about it, and it crossed my mind. Could you imagine if, like, one of Alex Jones' friends went out there to go visit the Pope Lick site, and they get there just at dark, and they walk up to the location, and they're looking around, and out in the distance they hear, "It's okay, you just come right on over. There's no problem. I'm just over here drinking some power bars and eating me a couple of cups of coffee. Hey, Lorenzo, I need another one of those." Like, I'm sorry, that whole swamp just got way creepier. If Alex Jones is hanging out there, I'm not going. That place is scary. I mean, just imagine it. So let me ask you this one. Why do we call the desert Southwest a desert?
Lack of water?
Is it?
I don't know.
Well, you go look around there, it looks like that place got blasted with a bajillion gallons of water. In fact, most places around there, it rains so much they have flash floods. That's not a desert. That is water mismanagement. We need beavers.
So that's Flo said he wanted you to explain the beavers and the, what was the other one? The
American chestnut.
Chestnuts.
All right. Buckle up, Buttercup. We're going for a ride.
I don't know if he's still here, but he was asking. He goes, "You need to explain this chestnut thing."
Okay, here we go. All right. So, before Columbus come to America, before the Vikings came, before the Egyptians showed up, whoever was the first one. When they reached the eastern seaboard, they looked out across the forest that we see now. They didn't see what we see. The forest was 1/3, one tree, and 3 was an American chestnut tree. These trees can grow a couple of 100 feet tall. On the eastern seaboard, they were the absolute boss tree. They occupied the similar niche to the sequoia out west, where they just dominate through size. But also, the American chestnut has another feature that its Chinese variant doesn't have. It develops multiple canopies. It grows up, puts out limbs, and then grows up again and puts out more limbs, and then it grows up again and puts out more limbs. And the whole time it's establishing a solid grip to the ground. A 300-foot tall tree will have a root mass that is equal to the weight of the trunk and leaves. Right? So if 1/3 of the trees on the eastern seaboard were American chestnut trees, and they were all 300 to 150 to 300 feet tall, that massive carbon by itself is virtually immeasurable. Most of these stumps to this day are still alive in the soil in the Appalachian Mountains. They still put off shoots and try to grow. But in the mid 1920s or so, a fungus from the Chinese chestnut family was introduced in the U.S. and killed every growing shoot of the American chestnut in existence. Because the trees died standing, a huge rush was put out to go cut down all of them to try to prevent the spread of this disease, which had already spread all the way across the entire Appalachia before they even realized it was happening. At one point in time, a man could leave New England with nothing but a fishing pole and a couple of pots in his bag and carry no food with him, because if he got hungry, he could stop and eat chestnuts along the way. That's why all of our American Christmas songs have roasting chestnuts on an open fire. Why they are a huge part of the Americana dream is because for a short period of time before 1920, a woman who was rendered a widow might be given an entire chestnut grove of 5 or 10 acres as sort of a subsidy to keep her alive without her husband. So a brother would inherit the land. He would give her 5 acres of chestnuts. She would sell, eat, process the nuts for whatever. You'd have hogs on them. Amazing things. Unbelievable. Now you take that nut tree out of the Appalachian range, and suddenly the chestnut blight is gone. You have to go away from the range of its native territory where the blight has been stricken for over 100 years, and you plant them elsewhere. And the best candidate on earth that I have found are the flash flood plains of like Utah. Because if you change the shape of that joint, you could literally build a paradise. And if you establish that paradise on specifically chestnuts from Darling 33, the only American chestnut tree that has developed a resistance to blight. We have one 50-50 chance whether the seeds live or die. But here's the gimmick. Let's say they live. You end up with a 300-foot tall tree. You get shade, you get shadow, you get deciduous leaves, you get chestnuts, all of that. The one next to it doesn't live. It grows 30-foot tall, trunk dies. It grows 12 more trunks. Trunks die. It grows 12 more trunks. This is the way they live. This is how it works for an American chestnut. Them being chopped off at the base is not the end of them. They've been living for 100 years with nothing but suckers. So if you can establish this specific species of tree, even if it's a failed species version of it, even if the genetics themselves don't work out, the actual physical carbon sequestration into the landscape, the depth of the roots, the amount of deciduous leaves and the false nut drops would increase the amount of carbon in the ground in the desert an unlimited percent because it's more than there is now. Add a beaver and you've got a whole new wetland.
Also, the beaver, as in making the dams, making, like just kind of creating a part of.
Humans have to do it first. We got to go in and get the flash flood under control. You find you a flash flood zone and you go out and you widen it out and you slow everything down. You pull the water out of the channel, you spread it across a huge swath of land so that it's a slight trickle instead of a massive flood. But this trickle, and here's the catch, this trickle only shows up every now and then when there's a flash flood. Otherwise, it's all been piped off to the ocean, basically. So that's the only wild water left in that area that hasn't been tamed and tapped. And that is how you get rid of flash floods, save the freaking planet, and bring back the beavers and the American chestnut tree all in one tiny little package that benefits everyone on Earth. We could create a brand new Amazon out there, dude.
I love that. I think that, a lot of, city land, especially inside the cities, should be fruit trees, should be trees, should be, you have people not having food. Well, what if there was food on the trees everywhere? What if they at least, 8 months of the year, there was apple trees and pear trees and cherry trees, and this is what the city was. They just got this ugly green grass that they got to pay people to mow, and it's not producing any food.
There's problems with fruit trees most people don't think of. Most fruit trees, if you don't gather the fruit at the right time period, will disease themselves through their own fruit drop. Right. So I would suggest that if city planning is going to be involved, that you should utilize one of the nut trees available. We have hundreds of them. Welcome to North America. We got bunches of them. And a long time ago, oak trees were rare. You didn't find them very often. They were special things that lived in their own little groves out in the forest because everywhere else was nuts. Walnuts, black walnuts, hickories, beech nuts, you freaking name it. We got a bajillion nuts, bro. Plant nut trees. They have huge canopies. They're all deciduous. They can survive a hard winter, and they drop a protected shell that will float on a current and deposit itself elsewhere to establish more forest.
I like that. And hemp, I think hemp should be being planted on all these crown lands, city lands, lands, because we can make papers, plastics, fuels, all kinds of clothing, housing. We could use lots if there was hemp, and plus it regenerates the soil, it cleans the air. They've actually, you plant, in Chernobyl and Fukushima, they planted a lot of hemp there to help clean the radiation. So it's, that's one of the biggest travesties I think that was ever done, was making the hemp and the cannabis illegal. I think that really changed the course of history.
It really did. It almost single-handedly eliminated our rope industry overnight. There was a long period of American history where it was the hemp plant, not the cotton plant, that was the foundation of American finances. We produced most of the rope used by most European navies for most of the 19th century. So when suddenly hemp became a non-commodity because it was associated with what was it?
Reefer madness. Reefer madness. It was associated with.
I love that movie. I've got 2 copies of it. Yeah. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to learn all 4 of them habitually smoked marijuana cigarettes. Reefers.
Yeah, but they used to plant the farms and in 4 quarters, And every quarter, one of the quarters, they didn't plant anything of crops, but they planted hemp because it
Well,
regenerated the nutrients in the soil. And then they used that to feed the animals, to feed the people. And then when people ate the animals that ate the hemp as feed, then they actually got CBD, from the meat that they ate from the animals. So it did, like, it was, and then they used it for the oils and the paper. They actually, is it the Constitution on hemp paper? Wasn't like that was the original. It was actually on hemp, which just changed everything by them taking that away from the people.
the fact that the federal government came down the way it did on hemp production is absolutely mind-boggling, because they took a cornerstone of American farmers' livelihoods, the production of rope and plant material. They took hemp out of the agricultural sector entirely. Think about it this way. Imagine instead a world where when you go to your forage, your feed mill, and you're like, I need a good pasture mix, right? They give you vetch, they give you seeds for various types of wheats and barleys and stuff like that. That's really tough and can survive on the land. Imagine they threw a handful of hemp seeds in there. That doesn't just thrive on the land. It's called weed for a reason. Hemp is the very first step in regenerating an area that you want to plant a forest in. If you got water, you can grow hemp. It just might not be great. But you can grow hemp. You can lay it down, and grow 3 or 4 years. Suddenly you have actual soil, living soil in a desert environment with unlimited water. Suddenly, that's the trick. It's all rock and rock dust out there. It's all shaped specifically to shed off water as fast as possible. You need a big ass bulldozer and a couple of beavers. I'm telling you, change the world. I will build a river. Not joking.
I like beaver.
Beavers are great. And if there's even a drop of water around, they just make more of it. It's the weirdest thing. And I know it has to do with them damming and like backing it up in the soil and stuff. I understand that. But I mean, until you've seen like a trickle coming down the side of a hill over here that you could stick your finger in and stop from flowing for a few minutes, right? And then turn that into a 15-acre pond. That makes no sense. An entire freaking cotton field gone under 3 foot of water. We had to come in with a bulldozer and get rid of the dam, trap the beavers out so they'd leave. And it still happens every now and then. Occasionally, a couple of beavers finds that freaking dribble, and they go decide they're going to have them a house right here. And they start flooding half the county.
Linda says, pot smokers saved the world.
Well, here's the conundrum. If you grow the pot and then you smoke the pot, you haven't sequestered any carbon. You're just high as hell.
But this carbon stuff is, it seems to be quite backwards, the whole carbon thing, attack on carbon, because carbon actually is what feeds the plants, right? Like CO2 and the carbon. Like when we have our little grow things, we pump carbon into the grow, so that way, carbon good, not carbon bad.
But
and the parts per million is 0.004 parts per million in the air, and it was 0.03. We're talking about not even a percent, not even a half a percent. We're talking about this amount of carbon that they're making the enemy in order to have carbon credits. But this carbon is what feeds the agriculture. So it's really bizarre that they're attacking on carbon, because that's just another attack on us.
Wait a second. What line did I drop? I'm sorry, Wolfie. Actually, that line is from a film called Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, which was written by Roger Ebert. Okay, but what line was it? I don't even remember. But yeah, no, all of my lines are from bad 80s movies. I'm sorry. How long do these things usually go on? How long do you do these?
Usually around 2 hours, but we can go on longer if you'd like. But we're usually around 2 hours.
I was just wondering if you have a limit, because I work with a couple of people who have a specific limit. When it comes to that mark, they want to be done. And even if they're in the middle of conversation, they want to stop.
Yeah, not me. If I have obviously something to do, something planned, if I had another interview later or whatever, I was supposed to have something planned, to do here in an hour, but that got moved till later on. So I
Okay.
don't have a specific time. As long as you want to chat and hang out, we
So
can.
let's chew on this carbon concept here, right? And to do that, we're going to have to back up, say, discovery of the New World, the actual beginning of our most recent calamity, I believe. You had a handful of Spaniards pop off over here, a couple of guys from Portugal. All of these guys are laden with all sorts of diseases, right? They show up, they meet people, they meet new and interesting people, and then kill them. And then they go home with a bunch of gold, and they're rich and famous and all that cool stuff. Those people who first showed up brought these diseases in. These diseases go and spread out amongst the population without ever firing a shot. It almost completely unpeopled the Amazon. 50 years later, when what was it? The Kdot, Pizarro? I can't remember. Anyway, the next guy who goes through there, who was expecting to find all these enormous cities of thousands and thousands of people, shows up. There's a jungle. It's a jungle. There's a building over there. There's another building over here. There's some guy fishing back there. In a single generation, the entire diversity of South America and North America were wiped out. And most of this occurred before any of the colonization or any of that crap ever happened. This is way before like Jamestown and stuff. So everything that happens at that point is negative to the environment. These natives had been in the Amazon, in the Southeast U.S., in the desert Southwest. They have been managing the landscape through traditional means and family methods, and passed down generation to generation for thousands of years. You go into the Amazon rainforest today, and you count off all the trees, you'll find that something like 25 to 30% of the trees are poisonous, non-useful, and basically invasive. And the other trees that are there are almost invariably nut trees, fruit trees, or useful trees for medicine or adhesive or something like that, right? The Amazon rainforest is not a wild forest. It is probably the greatest, most amazing food forest on earth, hand grown by the natives that lived there through controlled burning programs and seasonal migration with planting involved in those migrations and all that stuff for thousands of years. They killed off the ones that were toxic. They kept around the ones that were good. If it landed in a good spot and grew well, they kept it. They cut down the tree that was struggling. And we end up with these ginormous cloud forests in the Amazon, these massive macadamia nut trees that just really mathematically shouldn't really grow in nature without a little help, because the roots shouldn't go that deep. They shouldn't stand against the power of the river. But a few little things have been done, like the river's been straightened a little bit and the watershed's been managed a little bit. And these things have been done to deepen the roots and to facilitate the flowing of water through the soils. And this is done through these massive tree roots. You can't do that with a lodgepole pine. That's not going to happen. You need something that can grow into the ground and dislodge boulders to get their roots in. That's what it's going to take. If you're worried about carbon, the best place to store carbon is in a wonderfully wet environment like a beaver pond or a tree. And you want a really fast growing, huge growing tree. And that, my friends, is the American chestnut, 300 feet tall, grows 60 feet in 5 years.
60 feet in 5 years.
We'll start producing bounteous amounts of chestnuts that are not as aggressive as Chinese chestnuts, right? They got those big spiny balls on them. These have little curly Q balls. They won't kill you if they fall out of the tree. If you step on them, you might get a burr, but it's no big deal. But you can pick them up and crack them open by hand, unlike the Chinese chestnut.
200 people die per year from a coconut falling on their head.
Yes, sir. And I wouldn't doubt if there wasn't 2 or 3 out there that. Can you hear my dog snoring?
I heard something in the background, but it was just very, very faint.
That's my 100-pound mastiff over there being disgruntled by a dream, I suppose. Anyway, yeah, no, you want to talk about carbon sequestration. You take a desert, and you can't say regreening. I don't like the words regreening. I hate that concept. The whole idea is just wrong. You're not regreening an area that was once green. That fucking place has been a moonscape since the dawn of time. We are greening an area. You change the shape of it to catch the water, slow it down through the environment, put in some leaky weirs, and eventually beavers will just show up. Trees will just grow. You just got to keep the water around, and you can't let it be angry through the environment, just charging through, eroding everything.
Have you ever seen those videos of the moving trees that actually, like, you can see them? It looks like they're like even like through the dirt. Like, I don't know if that stuff is hoax, but that stuff sure is strange looking, especially if that's real.
We got an answer to the poll over here. The poll was, who will ask more questions, Caucasian Sasquatch or Jesse? I don't know. Which one?
I think I'm definitely beating that one on this one. So I definitely see. I think I'm asking more questions. Yeah, I've asked some questions, but I think I've
most of mine are
that.
for the most part. So
do you think that's real? Those trees that move around? Like, have you seen those videos of trees that actually it like looks like they're like walking underground and the dirt is moving and
steer in operation? Like, dude, I have seen a machine that rolls up to the bottom of one of those trees, grabs a hold to it, cuts it off, and then drives 2 miles over here where it lays it down with the rest of them. That's a thing that exists, and I don't have to believe in any myths for that one. Mm-hmm. It's a big ass machine, and it can do it. And I've seen people play with them too. It's nerve-wracking, to be honest. Why would you? No, don't know.
Yeah, I think that all of our tree needs could come out of hemp. And again, I think hemp is one of the biggest things that could help save humanity if we just plant hemp everywhere. Just planted hemp. Like, could you imagine all the highways had hemp all the way down each side, how it would just kind of protect from the wildlife coming on, and there were just big barriers of hemp all the way down, right? Like, there would be so many benefits to just having lots of hemp.
You ever grown any hemp there, brother?
No, I haven't.
Deer eat it.
Yeah, I love hemp hearts.
Might not be the best thing to plant next to the road.
Yeah, maybe, I guess.
Right up there with the fruit trees and the nut trees next to the road. Let's don't do that. Just, hey, we could put up one of those deer crossing signs so they know where to cross.
Yeah, we can tell them where they should be crossing for sure.
All right. Well, we got our Simple Jack, Joe Smith. Good to see you. Carrie Skates. Cool. Dreamland Escape the Chains. That's a good one. I like that.
Have you been to Sovereign's channel? I think that's dreamy.
I have not. I've been all over the YouTubery. I may have breezed through there, but not consciously where I was like, yeah, I'm going to see this dude's channel that I remember. I mean, I interview YouTubers in general, just like whatever genre you got, bro, we can talk about it, whatever it is. And one thing I want to say to everybody who's trying to make a YouTube channel work, don't curtail yourself to a topic. Your biggest dream might be to change the Fourth Amendment to something that you approve of, but no one on YouTube cares. There might be 3 people in all of YouTube sphere that cares about some rewording of some amendment. What I'm saying is, try to be at least mildly entertaining in the process of your content. Getting information across is excellent, but if you do it as an asshole, no one's going to watch except for the people you don't want to talk to.
What do you think about the YouTube, dynamics and how things are going? It seems like there's a lot of drama and a lot of, high schoolish, picking sides and hate armies building and just people attacking each other. Like, what do you think about all that kind of nonsense that, is being created in this indie
Exactly
street?
that nonsense. When it comes to hate armies and drama channels and all that stuff, I kind of have a philosophy on that. I'm a retired troll myself. I spent quite a bit of time before I started my channel running around and trolling up on everyone that said stuff I didn't like and whatnot. And there's nothing to it, dude. When it comes down to it, you have a few who are exceptionally talented and can have you literally charged with stuff that never happened. You also have some that are just trying to play the part. Knowing the difference between those two is critical. However, the same response deals with both of them. If someone does something that makes you angry, never, ever, ever mention it. Don't bring it up. Don't call out their video. Don't call out their channel. Don't say a single word on your channel that ever references those people. Because as soon as you do, it's like hitting them with steroids. You gave them some juice. They know they got to you. Don't get worked up. Don't get upset. If you absolutely must make a face, make it this one. And move on. Block them if you need to. I'm more of a free speech type. I know YouTube is not a free speech platform, but I like free speech. I just can't let it happen on my channel. That's not my fault. That's YouTube's rules. So as my mods in my channel over here see you doing any kind of shenanigans that's untowards, that's it. It's over. You're out. They protect the channel. That's part of their purpose. So in the process of interviewing all these people, I've learned a whole bunch of weird things that I didn't know previously. Like, the older your channel is, the less likely it is to be boosted.
What do you mean boosted?
If you've got a 5-year-old channel and a 3-year-old channel side by side that are doing exactly the same show, the 3-year-old channel is more likely to be boosted by the YouTube algorithm than the 5-year-old channel, on the basis that the 5-year-old channel is tired. It's a burnout thing. It's a weird algorithm, dude. It does all kinds of weird stuff. And there's not just one. There's a few running. You got your shorts algorithm, which handles your shorts feeds and all that. You have your copyright algorithm that runs on everything. You have your main feed algorithm, which is just that one that rolls where you're scrolling through and you're checking your stuff. Then you have the actual push algorithms that are the things that show up on the top of your feed. Like when you refresh your page and that very first video pops up, it should be something you've previously been interested in, something similar, right? All of this comes together and just shoots itself in the foot, rendering every single song with more than 3 notes gets copyright claimed by somebody somewhere. As soon as you get around to having enough people to actually monetize a channel, you've got enough assholes out there that are striking you that you're going to lose monetization immediately. I mean, it's virtually impossible to get a leg up because every current YouTuber that is making just enough money to scrape by off of YouTube are pulling the ladders up with them as fast as they can. We don't want to make any more new YouTubers. They might be better. In fact, I guarantee they'll be better because they'll be working with folks like me who don't ask for money and just do it in the background and show you how to accomplish it yourself. You want to figure out how to make that effect? We'll sit down and work it out, whatever it is, like this thing. Ever did. Neat. It's not hard.
Yeah, we've been doing this for 2.5 years, maybe 2 years and 3/4 for the Missing Link. This is our 621st interview. So we've been putting a lot of work in this. We've had 4 YouTube channels deleted. We had over 150,000 hours viewed, but we've interviewed 60 doctors against the medical agenda. Our first strike was interview 15 when we interviewed David Icke. That was our very first strike on interview 15.
That'll do it.
Yeah, so that's, they don't like him at all. And it's funny how, well, it's strange how they can have channels like how people are talking about like the Santos thing. Santos went off going crazy talking about, slitting throats and all this type of things, and his video is still up, but anybody that shares it gets a strike for sharing his video that he created. So it's just really bizarre how these algorithms work. But we've got hit hard. We've never made a dollar. Like, we don't ask people for money for our stuff. This is our service to humanity, kind of what we're doing here with this. And, Rumble is actually starting to give us, like, we get from our Rumble channel, like, I think we're up to like $350 in 2 years on Rumble that we've made, but they just started the last like 3 or 4 months. They started getting
you. Hold on. No, dude, you did it. If you can get $1 out of these bastards, I say squeeze it for all you can get, bro. I don't dude, look, I was nobody. The only thing I did for YouTube or about YouTube, like I said, I was a comment troll. I did some modding for some channels that I haven't really been given permission to shout out. I know the type of person I used to be. But as soon as I became Caucasian Sasquatch, I did 2 things. One, I eliminated all of my previous like troll mod accounts, and I made this video. And it's not the first thing uploaded to my channel, but it's the first thing I produced to upload to my channel. Everything else was like, hey, look at the beach, look at the geese, look at the dog or whatever, But this is the very first thing I actually and it's going to be weird for a minute. There we go. And that's the day I started my channel. I deleted everything, went out to the beach, and then came back in and started up Caucasian Sasquatch, started telling jokes, started doing things. And it's a Sasquatch sighting. You see the monster footage?
Oh, yeah.
That's the joke. Caucasian Sasquatch, first sighting right there.
Oh, that's awesome.
I like it. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, we have Facebook. People can subscribe to being a Facebook member. And people can give stars and stuff like that. And so there are people that, just kind of want to help us out from the kindness of their hearts and stuff. But, this definitely hasn't been a money-making thing, but we're really happy with the information that we've been able to provide to the people through this journey.
Do you have people that are assuming that you're making out like a bandit, that they just know you're making all kinds of YouTube money, that you're lying about it and stuff? Have you ever encountered those folks?
No, I never got a cent from YouTube. So,
I'm saying, have you encountered the people?
No, I don't. I don't ask. I don't ever. I just thank people at the end of the show for anybody that's for their stars and their shares and their hearts and stuff like that. But I don't advertise I don't say, hey, I need money. So I don't get that kind of trolling.
No, well, no. What I'm saying is, you haven't come across the guy who thinks you make a mint on YouTube. They think you get paid buku money for doing this, and really you do it because you want to do it. Like, I love this, dude. This is great. We've talked about beavers, chestnuts, angels, demons, you freaking name it, we've covered it. We're still going. This is awesome. I love it. The only thing that would make this better, and this is just my opinion because I'm that type of dork that always tweaks things when I get to it, is something pretty fluttering around in the background. Maybe a little bird flying by or so. I don't know, dude. I just throwing ideas at the wall.
Here, what about you want something in the back? How about, hang on, if I can put this monitor.
Oh, that is cool.
Up, hang on. Here, I need to put something here. I'll have something.
You do you, bro. You do you. Oh yeah, no, you got a disco ball.
There, now you got something pretty floating in the back.
Awesome. You showed me. I hear you, bro. Damn, that's good. Needs more Newfoundland content. I'm sorry, I can't just start spitting Newfie. The one thing I can do is Eddie Atby.
Eddie Uppy?
Eddie Atby. That's
Oh,
these literal words that are said is where you at, boy. However, in Newfie speak, it is what are you doing and can I join you? It generally involves a beer. How do you at by? Dude, I blew his mind. He's Newfie, Ardent Party. He's Newfie, and we were doing our show pre stuff, and in the middle of it, I stopped, looked at him, and said, "I'm fixing to break your head." He said, "What?" And I spit out the 3 Newfie phrases I could currently remember at the time, and his head almost twisted off the end of his neck because I play a lot of video games. Apparently, so do Newfies. So, yeah.
Yeah, the Newfies have got quite an interesting accent, and they're very fascinating people. They've come a lot here. I'm in Canada, Newfoundland's in Canada, so they come to Alberta for the work and stuff like that. The oil patches, like, so Alberta is kind of like the Texas of Canada. That's the province that I live in.
Dude, like them some of them boys, they're serious. They're serious. I've always been of the opinion that the next time we have us a major military threat brought against us, that rather than sending the army or trying to none of that. Now, what we should do is just drop some WWE tapes over there, some of those monster truck rally tapes, and some of those just show these guys the kind of crap that people who aren't in the military are building. Just random rednecks in their backyard. You send them some TikToks, it would just terrify them.
Send the Newfies in. That's, if you just heard that, that's my puppy. He's a 9, or I think he's 88 pound. He's a Presa Canario, and I'm not sure if you know the Presas, they're from the Canary Islands, and then his mom was a pit bull staffy mix, I guess.
Yeah, we call those Sooners. Sooner one thing than the other. I've got a bull mastiff, and he's like 122 pounds. He is ginormous, and the most hilarious part, scared of everything. Absolutely terrified of absolutely everything. It all goes to a young trauma he experienced. We had one of those anti-pull harnesses hooked to him. It's got the little ring on the end of it and the long string that sticks out from it. Yeah. He comes running through the house one afternoon, and that ring caught in the edge of one of the garbage trash bags that was full of cans, and it cinched up the end and started chasing him down the hall, and he completely lost it and has never gotten over it.
That's like, you see those videos of people that have a little string and they put a little animal or a little snake on someone on the golf course. They put it behind, or and they start fighting this thing that's just attached to them. So they're trying to run and they're falling down, and so that's kind of reminds me of.
It's hilarious.
Is there anything that we didn't talk about here today that you maybe wanted to chat about?
Dude, I've had a blast. Honestly, I appreciate you having me on. It's been absolutely amazing. At some point in time, we need to get together backstage and compare notes, just to round out the scale, I suppose. How do you generally do your play out? Do you have a little thing that you say before you leave, or do you let the guests say it, or do you have a song? Do you want to hum it? I can fake it.
No, I just ask you to, for any kind of final words, and then okay. I kind of say my little thing. So anything positive, any kind of funny, any kind of joke, anything that you wanted to leave everybody off here with today.
All right, so I want to thank each and every one of you. I appreciate your time. Y'all spent the time with us. I don't know why y'all aren't at work or doing like normal day stuff, but I appreciate you being here anyway. I advise you to go get that bag, but that's just me. Swiss Miss, thank you for coming in to chat. That's awesome. She's one of my primary moderators. Everybody, I mean, YouTube is not an actual job. It just takes that much time to do it. Nobody's making buku money except for the big guys at the top who kick down everybody who gets a chance to get close. There's not a whole lot of original content to do, so you have to do it from an original angle. That's all I ask. Do what you love, but make yourself uncomfortable doing it. Now, I don't mean sitting on a tack. You don't got to go sit on the edge of a building and like juggle. That's be logical here. Go fishing. Film it. Do what you love, and people will see that you love it, and that will attract people. I'm done.
I love that. So I do a lot of cooking. I love to cook, and a lot of times when I'm on panels, I'm there cooking, making food and stuff. And then, you know, we have this, or my girlfriend, she's got this page on Facebook, Loving Ourselves Together, where, you know, people inspire people to do good things, to do, you know, meditations and, you know, kind of cook good, healthy foods and stuff. So we post some food pictures and things in there, and people keep saying, you need to do a cookbook or you need to do a cooking show, you know. So who knows if that might be in the future, you know, kind of put it together, wild, crazy cooking, you know, kind of show. But, you know, this takes a lot of time for right now. And, you know, we're booked right now until February. So all of rest of November, all of January, all of December, all of January is fully booked.
I see that, dude. You have got them laid out from now to the end of Timbuktu, man. You're putting in that work, bro. I see.
Yeah,
it.
we've got about 60 people pre-booked right now, probably 60 or 70 right now to get onto our show.
Can I ask you a shop question, or you want to wait until after?
No, I'm open book.
Okay. How often do you have YouTubers that either just bug out or don't show up or ghost you?
That don't show up for the interview?
Yeah.
Out of 610, you know, or 621st interview, I think it may have happened once or twice. Sometimes people have to reschedule. Sometimes, you know, I'm very flexible. And if things happen, right? But it doesn't happen very often here.
The issue that I've had is, like, I'll set it up. We'll get everything scheduled up. We'll agree with the time. Everything's copacetic, but then turns out they don't understand how time zones work.
I put everything in Eastern Standard Time. So if people kind of know, I advertise in Eastern. I send out invites in Eastern. I ask them what time zone they're in. The first thing that I do is I ask them, hey, what time zone are you in? But then there's also Arizona time zone doesn't change now. They don't have the time zone change. So you have to know that time zone. So I always say Eastern time zone because that's kind of a generic. And so people can kind of figure it out. Not everybody figures it out and thinks it's their time zone and doesn't see the EST. So I try to be a little bit more stupid.
No, I know what it is. They think it's estimate. Not Eastern. I swear I've heard that so many times. Trying to get YouTubers to come in and do anything on time is like herding cats. It's frustrating. Go ahead and take me down and do your thing, bro.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody, you know, for, you know, hanging out here with us. I seen CaucAsian Sasquatch on one of the panels that, you know, I frequent, and I thought he would be a great interview, and, you know, great personable guy, great stories. And I love that he likes to bring humor into this. I think we need a lot more humor in this world, a lot less attacks, a lot more humor. And sometimes people think their attacks are humorous, but it's not so funny if you're not really friends with that person, or, you know, you're on that same rapport. It doesn't seem to be as funny, you know, with these things. So I got some friends that just, you know, are a bunch of jackasses, but that's just who they are, and that's what they do with their friends. And some people take that as thinking that's funny for people that you don't know. So I just think, you know, be yourself, be authentic. I think that's the most important thing. And, you know, we will win this, whatever this war is. So thanks everybody for all your likes, comments, hearts, shares, and stars. We appreciate all of your love and support. We've got around 150 people here watching live right now. And we only got about 60 thumbs up or likes. So, you know, everybody just hit the thumbs up button, you know, share this out, you know, thumbs up, 1 thumbs up, 2 thumbs up would be great. We appreciate that. I'm your host, Jesse Howell, here of The Missing Link. Tomorrow's interview, we have Kimberly Soul Retriever Ridgway. I'm coming back for the second time. Last time she was here, she did a whole Rick Simpson CBD oil demonstration on how to make the CBD oil and stuff. So she had got us another interview with someone else, and then I brought her, you know, back to see what she's gonna do. She's kind of does some content creation her as well herself. So it'll be another interesting interview. We try to interview everybody from every different walk of life. It's always a different interview here on The Missing Link from A to Z. I think it's a pivotal time in history, and we're just trying to record everybody that's speaking out. So in 20 years down, 30 years down, 2020 is kind of 2021 when we started. People can see a whole collection of hundreds and thousands are going to be by that time of different people at that time. So I think that that's one of the things that we like to do on Thursday for a USA Thanksgiving. We got the investigative journalist George Webb, cutting edge investigative journalist. He's been on here about 15 times. Such a great, we are hanging out so many times. Our rapport has gotten really good, and just a brilliant guy who is cutting edge. And then on Friday, we've got Derek Gonzalez. He talks about land patents and, you know, away from the court system, patenting your own land. Brilliant guy. We've had him on here a couple times. Haven't been on here for about a year and a half. So it's going to be interesting to see where he's at in his journey, because he helps people battle the court systems. And could you put Sasquatch's link in chat? Yep. And and the other thing I was going to say is all the people that are here watching on, you know, Sasquatch's stream, the links I believe should be in the comments here for The Missing Link. So if you wouldn't mind, you know, just subscribing. We do interviews 5 days. This week it's going to be 6. On Saturday we've got Stephen Manning coming back for like a 5th, 6th time. He's a scholar out of Ireland. So we're going to be doing 6 interviews, and we're interviewing every single week and just trying to provide the best information that we can. I think knowledge is power, and the more knowledge we all have, the less power they have over us. And I think that that's, you know, really important. Why we do what we do is because this is important to me. And I think it's important that we all raise our, you know, awareness about what's happening in order to maybe stop anything nefarious from happening. So love y'all. May the source be with you. Caucasian Sasquatch, may the source be with you. May the source be with you all in all that you do. And we'll see you next time we see you guys back on The Missing Link. Thanks again, Sasquatch. This is great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.